Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast for intermediate to advanced English learners. On January 15th, a massive volcanic eruption in Tonga sprayed lava, dust, and ash around the region and sent tsunami waves across the ocean. What is the situation in Tonga now? Why was the eruption so powerful? And what will happen next? Let's discuss it on today's episode of Thinking in English. Check out the full transcript of today's episode on the Thinking in English blog, and also head over to my Instagram page, Thinking in English Podcast, for more great English content. Here is today's English vocabulary list. As always, the written list is available in the description of the podcast and also on my blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. Eruption. Eruption. This noun refers to a volcano exploding, shooting out hot rocks and burning substances. For example, the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883 was potentially the loudest sound in history. Ash. Ash. The soft grey or black powdery substance left after you burn something. As in, you have to clear the ash out of the fireplace. To trigger. To trigger. To cause something to start. For example, caffeine can trigger headaches in some people. Devastating. Devastating. Causing a lot of damage or destruction. For example, satellite images show the devastating impact of earthquakes. Lava. Lava. Lava is the hot liquid that comes out of the earth through a volcano, or the solid rock formed when it cools down. For instance, lava can flow down the side of a volcano and destroy anything in its way. Magma. Magma. Liquid hot rock found just below the surface of the earth. So basically, it's magma while it's underground. Once it is overground, it is lava. For example, the volcano's magma chamber is quickly filling up. Vaporization. Vaporization. This is the process of turning or causing something to turn from a solid or liquid into a gas. As in, the vaporization of liquids occurs when they are heated to their boiling point. On January 15th, 2022, the Pacific island nation of Tonga was rocked by a devastating volcanic eruption. The volcanic eruption was so big that it sent a thick cloud of ash, dust, and smoke over 20 kilometers into the sky. People in New Zealand, thousands of miles away, reported hearing the volcano's blast, and shock waves were actually still spreading around the globe a whole week after the event. Tonga is a country made up of about 170 islands in the Pacific Ocean, and the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano is located only 40 miles or 65 kilometers north of the country's capital, Nuku'alofa. 2 hours before it erupted, the center of the volcano collapsed beneath the sea, and 2 hours later it erupted with devastating power. Satellite images taken days after the eruption show that the majority of the volcano and its surrounding land has now disappeared. The eruption also triggered an incredibly rare volcanic tsunami. Usually caused by earthquakes or other major disturbances, a tsunami is an abnormally long, high, or powerful sea wave. This tsunami overwhelmed local islands, destroyed buildings, and forced residents out of their homes. Eventually, the tsunami waves were recorded as far away as Japan, Russia, the USA, Australia, New Zealand, and Chile. In fact, the first confirmed deaths due to the volcanic eruption were thousands of miles away in the South American country of Peru, where two people drowned while in the ocean. Since the eruption, getting information about the situation in Tonga has been incredibly difficult. Communications have been severely disrupted as the tsunami damaged the undersea cables connecting Tonga to the rest of the world. It might take weeks, even months, to finish the necessary repairs. Australia and New Zealand have now managed to land supply planes at the airport on the main island, and those two countries are also sending Navy ships with aid. However, the situation in the thousands of other isolated Tongan communities is still unclear. Currently, it is unknown how many people lost their lives due to the natural disaster. In the hours before the explosive eruption, the volcano was causing hundreds of thousands of lightning strikes. Ash, dust, and rocks fell onto the neighboring islands, and the tsunami rushed through villages and towns. Damage to these villages, or roads and crops, is also unknown. A particularly serious problem is likely to be water. Many Tongans collect rainwater to drink, but this is now likely contaminated with the ash and dust from the eruption. And while the help of Australia and New Zealand is incredibly important, it also comes with risks. Tonga has only had one case of COVID-19 so far, which was caught before the person even left the airport. So there are obviously concerns that international aid workers and support staff may also bring with them the pandemic. The islands of Tonga sit within the Ring of Fire, although it is probably more accurate to describe it as a horseshoe of fire. Stretching from New Zealand around to Southeast Asia and Japan, and then around the ocean to northern Russia, Alaska, western Canada, and then down the west coast of the Americas to the south of Chile. The Ring of Fire is responsible for many of the world's most devastating earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Although the volcanoes of Tonga are not as tall as those found in Indonesia or Chile, they can be incredibly powerful. The Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano has erupted many times before. Beginning in 2014, an eruption produced so much ash and lava that it filled in the sea between two islands. In other words, the eruption turned these two islands into one. They turned the Hunga Tonga and the Hunga Ha'apai islands into one big island. And eruptions last year made this island grow even bigger. However, this island was also part of the reason for the current eruption being so powerful. It allowed for a much larger amount of magma to build up and then escape from its chamber on January the 15th. The combination of gases escaping and the instant vaporization of huge amounts of seawater made this eruption so explosive. However, the explosion of lava, ash, and dust was just part of the destruction. It was also accompanied by an underwater implosion. As the magma chamber emptied and its contents were fired into the sky, the sides of the chamber collapsed into itself. It is likely that this collapse contributed to the creation of a tsunami. Will there be more eruptions? Well, it's hard to tell. Researchers who have studied this volcano say that similar eruptions occurred 1,000 years ago and 2,000 years ago. However, these were not one single eruption, but multiple eruptions over a relatively short period of time. Experts are now scrambling to find out whether the volcano will start to fill up again with magma, but it's not an easy task as communication and resources are scarce in the region. What will happen to Tonga? About a quarter of Tonga's 100,000 residents live in the capital city, the same city that is now covered in ash and damaged by tsunami waves. One of the biggest problems caused by falling ash is the risk to crops. Ash can stick to plants, which could cause them to die. This ash is also acidic, which means that it can make water taste bad and cause stomach problems. Despite this, it is a little fortunate that the ash is not poisonous, so it is still possible to drink the contaminated water if you need to. Sometimes, massive volcanic eruptions can also cause global cooling, but this didn't and won't happen after the Tongan eruption. This volcano didn't produce much sulfur dioxide, which is the gas that can make global temperatures fall. In fact, the greatest mystery so far about the eruption is why Tonga doesn't have more damage. The country literally sits on the volcano. So far, 3 deaths have been confirmed, but the smaller islands are yet to be checked, and dozens of houses were destroyed. However, this is quite good for a tsunami. It has been suggested that the increased activity from the volcano the day before the eruption gave people some early warning. Also, the eruption's loud bang, which came before the tsunami, allowed people to flee to higher ground. And perhaps natural geography, things like reefs and lagoons in the ocean around Tonga, may have protected parts of the country. So here is today's final thought. On today's episode of Thinking in English, I have tried to explain some details of the recent Tonga volcanic eruption. Although the situation is still unclear, it seems that, for the most part, Tonga has avoided the worst effects of the eruption. What will happen next? Well, we are all hoping there will not be any more eruptions. But according to scientists, past eruptions suggest things might not be so simple. Have you ever experienced a natural disaster? Let me know in the comments on the blog or on Spotify. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review or rating, recommend it to your friends, or let me know on Instagram. My Instagram is Thinking in English Podcast. The link should be in the description. And make sure you check out the Thinking in English blog. I love hearing from listeners, and I really appreciate all of the messages I have received over the past few months. Feel free to send me a message or give me some advice or recommend a topic. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.